picture this. You just spent, I don't know, $50,000 on a massive new digital campaign.
Oh, yeah. The stressful part.
Right. Like the creative is stunning, the targeting is totally dialed in, and you're ready for the results. So you open your GA4 dashboard, heart is kind of pounding.
And it's a ghost town.
It is a complete ghost town. Like your paid traffic has absolutely no source attached to it.
Yep.
And conversions are, I mean, they're rolling in, sure, but they're all being dumped into this black hole labeled direct.
Yep, the dreaded direct bucket.
Exactly. You have this ad variation that you know for a fact drove a sale, right?
Yeah.
But there's just nothing in the data that actually ties the two together.
Which is, I mean, it's maddening.
It's totally maddening.
Wow.
Well, welcome to episode number 32 of Fix the Funnel with GAfix. Today we're tackling a scenario that honestly gives digital marketers some serious heartburn. And more importantly, we're going to architect a resilient, like 4-layer system to fix it.
Yeah, because that moment of just, staring at a broken GA4 report, it's terrifying.
Oh, totally.
And the immediate reaction in, I'd say, almost any boardroom is to blame the campaign itself, right? Like we assume, oh, well, the creative must be fatigued or
the targeting is off.
Exactly, the targeting is wrong. But the reality is usually far more structural. It's that the tracking mechanisms are just quietly breaking down somewhere between the user's initial click and, your final analytics report.
Right. So we are pulling from some incredible source material today to really unpack exactly why that breakdown happens. Let's start with the root of the problem. Like, why is everything suddenly being routed into that direct traffic bucket?
So it comes down to a fundamental vulnerability in how most tracking architecture is built today. I mean, historically, the industry has leaned entirely on single point mechanisms.
Okay, single point meaning what exactly?
Meaning you might have a UTM string attached to the end of a URL or maybe a client-side JavaScript tag firing in a browser or just a third-party cookie dropped onto a device and, the setup just stops there.
I see. Which means it's completely binary.
Yes, exactly. If that one specific mechanism fails, you get nothing.
Conceptually, it's like trying to secure a multi-million-dollar bank vault with just one, cheap padlock.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right. Because you might have the heaviest steel door in the world, but if someone with a pair of bolt cutters just, snaps that single padlock, the whole system is completely compromised.
Right. And honestly, abandoning the padlock entirely is the only real solution here. Because in our current digital ecosystem, everyday actions are acting exactly like those bolt cutters.
Like what? What's cutting the lock?
Well, a user hitting reject all on a cookie banner, for one, or an ad blocker intercepting your tracking script, or even just a content delivery network accidentally stripping a parameter during a redirect.
Just normal internet stuff, really.
Exactly, just normal stuff. But when that one fragile identifying signal vanishes, GA4 basically panics. It doesn't know where the user came from, so it just defaults to the safest, most generic bucket it has, which is direct traffic.
Direct traffic. Wow. So redundancy is reliability then?
100%.
Okay, so our mission today for this deep dive is to build out a 4-layer tracking architecture where these mechanisms are, stacked independently. So when one inevitably fails, the others catch the data intact.
That's the goal.
Let's dive right into layer 1. The sources call this the easiest gap to close, but they also say almost everyone skips it. We're talking about URL camouflage.
Yeah, URL camouflage. We can break this layer down into 2 parts, really. The decoy and the foundation.
Okay, let's do the decoy first.
So standard UTM parameters, things like UTM source, UTM medium, UTM campaign, these are heavily targeted today.
Because everyone uses them.
Exactly. Because those parameter names are universal industry standards, privacy tools and ad blockers are explicitly programmed to scan web addresses for those exact text strings.
So they're just looking for those specific words.
Right. When they spot a question mark followed by, UTM source, they literally just sever it from the URL before the page even fully loads.
Man, they are absolute sitting ducks. So how do we camouflage them? I mean, how do you hide something that obvious?
Well, you mirror your values under custom parameter names. So instead of solely sending UTM source equals LinkedIn, you configure your ad platform to also append a custom parameter.
Like what?
Maybe something like Chan equals LinkedIn.
Oh, for channel.
Right, Chan for channel. And maybe Camp for the campaign name. Because an ad blocker isn't programmed to hunt for the word Chan.
Oh.
It evades those basic block lists because it just doesn't look like standard tracking telemetry. And you layer that with a dynamic click ID too, like a G-CLID for Google Ads.
While still keeping your standard UTMs attached,
Okay.
right? For the people who don't strip them.
Exactly. You keep both.
Okay, I have to push back on this right away, though. Because this feels like playing a massive game of hide and seek with privacy tools. Yeah. Like, sure, it works this month, right? But what happens next year when the ad blockers get slightly smarter, update their block lists, and start searching for Chan and Camp and whatever other clever abbreviations we invent? Aren't we just delaying the inevitable death of the parameter?
You know, that is the exact reason why the decoy is only the first half of layer 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The ultimate fallback, the actual foundation of this layer, doesn't rely on parameters at all. You encode the tracking data directly into the structural path of the page URL itself.
Okay, walk me through how that actually looks in practice, because I'm trying to picture it.
Sure. So instead of sending a user to a generic landing page with a long string of parameters tacked onto the end, you build the tracking into the geography of the site.
The geography.
Yeah. So your destination URL looks like this. Yourwebsite.com/LinkedIn ads/fall workflow launch/variation2.
Wait, so there's no question mark at all?
None. 0 parameters. It is mathematically immune to URL stripping tools by default because there is literally no parameter for the tool to target.
Because it just looks like a regular page on your website?
Exactly. It's just a folder path as far as the browser knows. But once the user lands there, you use Google Tag Manager to extract those values.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, GTM can easily be configured to, read the URL path, split the text at every /, and assign LinkedIn ads to your source variable and fall workflow launch to your campaign variable.
That is so smart.
Right. So even if a highly aggressive privacy tool wipes out every parameter on the link, that structural URL path is the last thing standing.
You're baking the tracking into the very concrete of the website.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've protected the URL, and it survives the click.
Yeah.
But that clever URL path is entirely useless if the user lands on the page and immediately hits reject all on your cookie banner.
Right.
Like, the data is legally dead at that point.
Dead on arrival.
So how do we measure what we explicitly aren't allowed to track?
Well, if we look at the recent advanced metrics data from 2023, the reality of this is staggering.
Oh, yeah. This stat blew my mind in the source material.
Right. They analyzed the first click behavior of over 1.2 million site visitors. Only 25% of users accept all cookies on their first interaction.
I mean, let's just pause on that. 3 out of 4 people are rejecting tracking on the very first click.
Yep, 75%.
So for 75% of your traffic, GA4 just loses permission to track them normally.
Yeah.
Those conversions just vanish from your reporting dashboard.
Which means you are effectively flying blind for the vast majority of your audience, and that is exactly why this requires layer 2.
The modeler.
Right, the modeler, which utilizes consent mode version 2. To really understand this, we need to look at how it sits within your setup, right?
Okay.
So consent mode v2 is a property-level configuration.
Meaning what for the average user?
It means it sits at the very top of your GA4 hierarchy. It dictates the fundamental rules for all incoming data streams before anything even hits your reports.
Gotcha. So how does it handle that 75% who said no to the banner?
Well, first, it fundamentally respects the user's privacy choice. So no identifying cookies are dropped on their device whatsoever.
Right, as it should.
Exactly. However, it allows Google to send what are called cookieless pings.
Cookieless pings. Okay.
Yeah. These pings have no user identifiers attached to them, but they do communicate basic contextual data. Things like, the time of day, the type of device they're using, the browser version.
Like iPhone, Safari, 2 p.m.
Exactly. Then consent mode looks at the detailed behavioral patterns of the 25% of visitors who did accept tracking.
Right.
And it feeds that known data into a machine learning algorithm to mathematically estimate or model the conversion paths of the users who declined.
Wow. Okay, I want to make sure I really grasp the mechanics here because it sounds a little wild.
Let's break it down.
It sounds to me like a teacher giving a massive math exam to a lecture hall of, say, 100 students.
Okay, I like this.
Right. And only 25 students actually show their work and write down the complex formulas they used. The other 75 just hand in a sheet with the final answers.
Okay.
So the teacher is grading the methodology of the entire room based on the patterns of the 25 students who bothered to show their work. But honestly, I have to ask, how do we know this isn't just GA4 hallucinating data to make our marketing dashboards look better, and keep us spending ad dollars?
Look, it's a completely fair skepticism, especially when you hear that an algorithm is just filling in the blanks.
Right. It feels a little suspicious.
It does. But the distinction between hallucination and statistical modeling lies in the aggregate signals. I mean, consent mode doesn't invent sales out of thin air.
Okay, that's important.
Yeah, it knows a conversion actually happened on your back end. Your servers recorded a sale. What it's trying to do is attribute the source of that conversion.
Oh, I see.
It uses Bayesian modeling to map the known conversion rates, the device types, the timestamps of your consenting group onto the anonymous pings of the non-consenting group.
Okay, so it's looking at a purchase that just happened on an iPhone Safari browser at 2 p.m., recognizing that it doesn't have consent to read the cookie for that specific user.
Right.
But noting that in the consenting group, maybe 80% of iPhone Safari purchases at 2 p.m. came from an Instagram ad. So it just assigns a high probability to that channel for this anonymous ping.
That is the exact mechanism, yes. And in the realm of attribution, having a scientifically sound probabilistic estimate like that is vastly superior to reporting zero conversions for 75% of your audience.
Which we categorically know is false because the money is in the bank.
Exactly. The sales happened. You just need a mathematical way to attribute them.
Getting as close to reality as mathematically possible without violating consent. I see the value there. I really do. But let's shift gears from the users who politely decline via a banner to the technology that forcefully shuts down the entire conversation before the banner even has a chance to load. Let's talk about ad blockers.
Ah, yes. Yeah, heavy artillery.
Right. And layer 3, which the source is called a bypass.
So this layer tackles a massive architectural flaw in how most web tracking has historically operated, which is client-side execution.
Client-side, meaning the user side.
Exactly. The client in this context is the user's actual web browser. So Chrome, Safari, Firefox. And it's running on their physical laptop or their phone.
And because that tracking script is executing right there on their personal machine, an ad blocker installed in that machine has, well, full jurisdiction to intercept the script.
Full jurisdiction, yes.
And it can just kill it before it can ever send data back to Google Analytics.
Precisely. And the scale of this is huge. The YouGov survey data from 2024, which spanned, I think, 48 markets, it found that roughly 25% of consumers are actively running browser-based ad blockers.
A quarter of the internet.
A quarter of the internet. And honestly, that statistic doesn't even account for the strict anti-tracking protocols that browsers like Safari and Firefox now integrate directly into their source code by default.
Right, like Apple's intelligent tracking prevention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So millions of client-side tags are just completely dead on arrival. They never even fire.
Man. So how does layer 3 bypass a tool that is literally sitting right inside the user's browser, guarding the door?
By using server-side tagging to strip the browser of its ability to intercept the final handoff.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, with server-side Google Tag Manager, you move the execution of the JavaScript away from the user's browser and into a secure cloud server environment that your business solely controls.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm tracking.
Go for it.
Standard client-side tracking is kind of like trying to have a highly sensitive business conversation in the middle of a crowded public square.
Right?
Anyone, like an ad blocker, can eavesdrop on it, they can interrupt you, or just shout over you to shut you down.
Right, it's totally exposed.
So server-side tagging basically takes that exact same conversation, pulls it out of the public square, and moves it into a private locked room inside your own office building.
I love that. And I'll actually take that analogy a step further to explain the mechanics. You build that private locked room by creating a first-party subdomain.
A first-party subdomain.
Yeah. Instead of the user's browser trying to send data outward to a known third-party tracking domain, like, google-analytics.com.
Which the ad blocker recognizes and kills immediately.
Exactly. Instead of doing that, it sends a single stream of data to something like metrics.yourcompany.com.
Oh, which is your secure server.
Right. And because yourcompany.com is the actual website the user is visiting, the ad blockers generally ignore this request.
Because it just looks like a standard, necessary first-party interaction required to load the page.
Exactly. It looks totally benign. And once that data safely arrives in your secure server container, your server processes it behind closed doors and forwards the tracking request directly to GA4 via an API.
Wow.
Yeah. The client browser is entirely removed from that final leg of the journey. It really is the absolute closest that attribution tracking gets to completely bypassing ad blockers.
That is brilliant. So, okay, let's recap where we are. We have decoy URLs, dodging the basic filters.
Mm-hmm.
We have statistical modeling, catching the unconsented traffic. And we have private server rooms bypassing the ad blockers.
A pretty solid stack.
It is. But there is still one massive blind spot in this architecture that we haven't talked about. What happens when the journey stretches across multiple days and multiple pieces of hardware?
Ah, yes. The cross-device problem.
Right. This brings us to layer 4, the bridge.
The cross-device journey is, it's a notorious black hole in attribution. Let's just trace a standard path to see why.
Okay.
Imagine a potential customer is riding the train on a Tuesday morning, right? They're scrolling through their phone, they tap on your Google ad, browse your site for a few minutes, but they don't buy anything.
Very typical behavior.
Totally. Then, 3 days later, on Friday night, they sit down at their desktop computer at home, type your website directly into the address bar, and make a massive purchase.
Right. And under standard tracking conditions, that desktop purchase on Friday has absolutely no connection to the Tuesday ad click.
Not at all.
Because a cookie sitting on a mobile phone browser cannot magically jump through the air onto a desktop browser.
Right. The Tuesday click ID is long gone. So GA4 looks at the Friday purchase, shrugs, and dumps it right into direct traffic.
Just adds to the pile.
Exactly. And no amount of clever URL structuring or server-side routing can fix that disconnect because the click and the sale happen in two entirely isolated environments.
So how do we fix it?
This is where enhanced conversions operates as the final bridge.
Okay, but how can it possibly connect those dots without a persistent tracking cookie linking the devices?
By leveraging first-party data at the precise moment of the transaction?
Meaning when they actually buy something.
Yes. When that customer finally completes the purchase on their desktop on Friday, they have to provide information to check out, right? Usually an email address or a mobile phone number.
Right, for the receipt or shipping.
Exactly. Enhanced Conversions takes that email address, runs it through a cryptographic hashing algorithm, and sends that hash string to Google.
Okay, stop right there. I have to put on my corporate privacy lawyer hat for a second.
I figured this was coming.
I mean, we have to. The idea of taking our customer purchase lists, extracting their private email addresses, and beaming them directly to the largest advertising network on Earth sounds like an absolute compliance nightmare.
It sounds terrifying on paper.
It does. You say it's hashed, but what does that actually mean? Like, how is this actually safe for the consumer?
It is a critical concern, and honestly, the safety hinges entirely on how a cryptographic hash function, like SHA-256, operates.
Okay, break that down for me.
So hashing is fundamentally different from encryption. If you encrypt an email address, someone with the right digital key can decrypt it and read the original text, right?
Right, like unlocking a door.
Exactly. But hashing is a one-way street. Think of it like a meat grinder. You can put a steak into a meat grinder and get ground beef, but you cannot put ground beef into the grinder and turn it back into a steak.
Oh man, that is a visceral analogy, but it works. So John at example.com gets put through the grinder and becomes a random string of 64 letters and numbers.
Yes, and it is mathematically practically impossible to reverse engineer that 64-character string back into John at example.com. Google never receives the raw data, and they literally cannot read the raw data.
Okay, but wait. If it's just random gibberish, how does Google actually use it to connect the Tuesday phone click to the Friday desktop purchase? Are they just, like, keeping a massive lookup table of everyone's hashes?
They are matching mathematical fingerprints. So think back to Tuesday. When John was on the train and clicked your ad on his phone, he was likely logged into a Google service, right? Like YouTube or Gmail.
Probably, yeah. Most people are.
Right. So Google already ran his email through that exact same SHA-256 meat grinder, and they stored the resulting gibberish string alongside the ad click.
Right.
Then, when John buys on your desktop site on Friday, your server hashes his checkout email and sends the resulting gibberish string to Google. Google simply compares the two strings.
Oh?
Yeah. If the gibberish from Tuesday matches the gibberish from Friday, the algorithm knows it's the exact same person.
That is wild.
It bridges the multi-day cross-device gap without ever exposing the underlying private information.
So they're just matching the mathematical fingerprints. They're not trading phone book.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes complete sense. Okay, so we now have our 4 resilient layers, right? We've got URL camouflage, consent mode modeling, server-side tagging, and enhanced conversions.
The full stack.
But implementing all of this, it raises a massive conceptual question for me about the reporting itself. Like, does layering all these different capture systems fundamentally change GA4's attribution model?
That's a great question.
Like, does this alter how GA4 weighs a first touch versus a last touch in the customer journey.
We have to draw a very hard line here between the concept of capture and the concept of the model.
Capture versus model. Okay.
Everything in the 4 layers we just built is entirely about capture. It's the physical mechanics of retrieving the raw data of the user interaction.
Getting the data through the front door of the analytics platform, basically.
Precisely. Now, GA4's attribution model is what happens after the data is already inside the house. By default, GA4 uses data-driven attribution, or DDA.
Right.
DDA uses machine learning algorithms to look at the entire sequence of touch points and assign fractional credit to different channels based on their actual impact. But here is the golden rule of analytics. Data-driven attribution cannot run on empty capture data.
Because you can't run advanced fractional math on a blank spreadsheet.
You can't. It's impossible. If your traffic is stubbornly showing up as direct, that is a capture problem. The mechanism failed. It is not a model problem.
Okay, that is a huge distinction.
It really is. You should never touch your attribution settings or switch algorithms in the GA4 admin panel until you have rigorously confirmed that your capture mechanisms are functioning properly.
Don't play with the math if the inputs are broken. I love that. Which I guess brings us to the ultimate operational hurdle here. If these 4 layers represent the gold standard for resilient tracking, why do the sources note that in the vast majority of professional audits, enterprise setups only have 1 or maybe 2 of these layers actually functioning?
It's a fair point.
Right. Like, if the knowledge is out there, why is the execution failing so consistently?
Well, the source material is very clear on this. It is almost never a skills deficit.
Really? It's not just people not knowing how to code it.
No. Senior digital marketing teams understand the theory of consent mode, and they know the theoretical value of a server-side subdomain. The actual failure point is audit exhaustion.
Audit exhaustion. Because it just takes too much time to verify all of this stuff.
It is incredibly tedious work. Think about it. To thoroughly audit these 4 distinct layers, a technical marketer has to log into the GA4 admin panel to check data streams. They have to dig through individual tags and triggers inside multiple Google Tag Manager containers.
Which is a nightmare UI, let's be real.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then they have to cross-reference conversion actions in Google Ads and run debuggers to watch network requests in real time.
Wow.
It takes hours, sometimes days, to map out the true state of the architecture. And frankly, when the dashboard doesn't look catastrophically broken on the surface, it is very easy to push that deep technical audit off until next quarter.
Right. It's the classic, if it ain't actively on fire, don't fix it mentality.
Yeah.
Even as the structural foundation is quietly rotting away beneath the surface.
Exactly. And this time problem, this audit exhaustion, is exactly why the source text introduces the GAfix audit tool.
Okay, let's talk about that, because this seems like the missing piece.
It is. The entire value proposition of GAfix is about removing that time bottleneck. It addresses audit exhaustion directly because it operates as a read-only scanning tool.
So not changing anything.
Exactly. It analyzes the GA4 property in a fraction of the time it would take a human to manually click through all of those nested configuration menus. It automatically flags missing consent mode implementations, it highlights broken channel groupings, and because it is strictly read-only, it never alters or stores your underlying historical data.
So it just gives you the architectural map.
Yes.
It shows you instantly which of these 4 layers are actually catching data and which ones you've just been, blindly trusting because someone installed a script 3 years ago and walked away.
That happens all the time. It forces transparency onto the setup so you can actually get to work fixing the capture mechanisms instead of just hunting for them.
Wow. So let's bring this all together. What we've really uncovered today is that resilient marketing tracking in this modern privacy era, it's not about hunting for one perfect piece of JavaScript.
Not anymore.
Right. It requires an architecture of redundancy. It's stacking independent mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
So we've got decoy URL paths, behavioral statistical modeling, first-party server bypasses, and hashed cross-device bridges.
And when one inevitably fails against an ad blocker or a privacy setting,
the other layers are there to catch the data. We are basically replacing the single cheap padlock with a multifaceted security system.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And implementing that kind of architectural redundancy is no longer an optional upgrade for enterprise marketing teams. It is a fundamental requirement if you want your ROI reporting to have any connection to reality.
Absolutely.
But, as we look at all these sophisticated workarounds, it raises a much larger philosophical issue about where this entire industry is heading.
Oh, I am always here for the big picture. Leave us with something to chew on.
Well, Think about it. If our tracking architecture now relies so heavily on predictive algorithms to model the behavior of missing users
Right.
and on cryptographic hashes to artificially bridge cross-device journeys,
Hmm.
are we rapidly moving toward a future where marketing attribution is no longer about deterministic, exact counting?
Oh, wow.
Right? Are we entering an era where we just have to trust a black box algorithm's educated guess? And if the answer is yes, how will that fundamentally change the way marketers are forced to prove their value and justify their ad spend in the boardroom?
Man. Transitioning from counting exact clicks to basically trusting the machine's best probabilistic guess. That is a massive paradigm shift, and honestly, definitely something that's going to keep me up at night the next time I'm staring at a GA4 report, wondering where all my paid traffic went.
It's a brave new world out there.
It really is. Well, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into fixing the funnel. We'll catch you on the next one.